I think a lot of the buyers at the time were just entertained because I was this 23, 24-year-old kid that, was just like, hey, I've got this great product to sell you and you need to buy it. And not just one container, buy five. And I was just tenacious.
Here's a Southern California boy, goes to school in Los Angeles, gets a job out of college, builds some great relationships, parlays that into his own business in Nevada, in Las Vegas, to becoming an international global entrepreneur.
We went down to Palermo, went to some of the Sicilian vineyards down there too. So going all over Italy, and we would fly in 1 or 2 days and fly back out. Because when you're hustling, your business is 24/7.
But there was a time where this all kind of came to an end. Working with the family, or living it up and making a ton of money and running a business out there.
I think it was that internal struggle and conflict. I've always said I could walk out of the vault today with the clothes I have on my back, the relationships I've made over the years, and I could rebuild or develop a whole new line of business just because I like that challenge.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Ray Lucia Jr. And today I'm going to introduce you to one of my most favorite people in the whole wide world, my cousin Joe Lucia, who's going to share his story on how he went from wine and spirits entrepreneur, which is really, really fun and great stories he's got to tell there, to running a $2 billion wealth management firm. And so without further ado, Joe Lucia, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ray. Great to be here.
Yeah. So this is kind of fun because I get to hang out with my cousin for a little while here in the vault. And we get to talk about, your experiences, and some of those along the way I've shared, by living vicariously through you back in the day. So why don't we just jump right into it? And, let's talk about the beginning. So you went to school at Pepperdine University.
I had the pleasure to live on the beach in Malibu for 4 years. So
That's rough.
So a lot of people would say I was roughing it.
It's a rough life.
Roughing it. And
if there's such thing as glamping for college, that would be Pepperdine University.
Yeah, 360, that'd be 180 degree ocean view, pretty much 365 days of the year. It was rough. There were some overcast days, so, you should feel bad for me, but no, an amazing experience. Obviously out of high school, had a couple options. It was Stanford and potentially play football for Bill Walsh, or hang up the cleats and go live on the beach in Malibu. And I majored in business, so I got my business degree and met some tremendous people along the way, and had an opportunity to kind of learn what I wanted to do in life. And
so you were always a go-getter. I mean, I remember, and we're not so fit today, but back in college, even back in college, I wasn't that fit, but you certainly were. And, so you were a go-getter entrepreneur. You were always trying to, figure out, life. And when you're in college, you worked out at a gym, or you worked at a gym, you worked out at the gym.
Yeah, I worked for a gym right off campus, and the owner of the gym was actually Pierce Brosnan's personal trainer, and then the who's who of Malibu would come into that gym. So Stallone, Woody Harrelson, Cindy Crawford. So I was this, 20, 21-year-old kid working for this gym, and I got to meet all these people. I got to play on Tony Danza's softball team, and it was just an eclectic group. You'd go shopping at the time. It was Hughes Market, I believe it's Ralph's today, but you go to the store and you just see everything. I'd go to the sushi place up the street on PCH, and we'd be sitting at the table next to, at the time, Pamela Lee and Tommy Lee, and it was just it was surreal at the time.
Yeah, we're not going to take this show down that path.
No, we won't go down that path. I had nothing to do with any videos or anything that happened.
No
houseboating or anything like that.
Understood.
So, but
you were just surrounded. You were just surrounded by stardom and wealth.
It was
and
wealth,
success,
and looking back, as a 20-year-old kid, I didn't really realize kind of the world I was in. And, maybe, being part of the gym helped me kind of forge some relationships with some pretty influential people. And I didn't really even realize how influential some of those people were, but kind of gave me a solid um, grounding, and, and taught me that, what, if I wanted those things, I had to work really hard for it. Nobody was just going to hand it to me. And though I probably could have been somebody's pool boy and lived in Malibu, cleaning pools in a pool house for the rest of my life, that's not what I aspired to do.
Right. We don't want to also reference Kato Kalin or anything like that.
Exactly.
As a career path.
Exactly.
So, it was really fascinating because I was at Loyola Marymount.
Yep.
Which is, depending on traffic, maybe like 45 minutes south of Pepperdine. Not nearly as cool as Pepperdine, but and living vicariously through you. I mean, so you were a business major. Yep. Tell everyone. So, how did you get in the wine and spirits industry? So it's fascinating.
So my senior year of college at Pepperdine, I realized I wasn't going to be a personal trainer the rest of my life, and I realized there was a cap there, and I didn't know necessarily I was going to stay in Malibu. And through some family relationships, we knew an Italian wine import company that was based out of Arcadia, and so my senior year, I started driving 2 days a week and kind of working in the warehouse and learning the business. And I was fascinated by the opportunity to, import wines, and they were mostly wines from Italy, and, build relationships with, accounts like Safeway and Trader Joe's and Albertsons at the time. And so once I graduated college with my business degree, I was like, it was kind of a perfect fit. Well, why don't you go work for the Italian wine company? And, I became basically their top salesperson because I was young. I was a go-getter. I didn't know how to take no for an answer. So I started flying to Bentonville and meeting with Sam's Club. I'd fly up to Issaquah and meet with Costco. And I think a lot of the buyers at the time were just entertained because I was this 23, 24-year-old kid that, was just like, hey, I've got this great product to sell you and you need to buy it. And not just one container, buy 5. And I, I was just tenacious, and it helped me, sometimes deal with rejection because not everybody said yes, but most of them did. And it helped me forge really solid relationships. And then I started to go to the East Coast, and BJ's Wholesale was another big box store that I called on. And it really taught me, to be tenacious and really the opportunity to build relationships with people. So from that, I ended up launching my own import wholesale business back in 2000. And that's when I moved out to Las Vegas and had the opportunity to, start importing wines from France and from Australia and some other things.
What was that thought process like? So you're working in somewhere eastern part of Los Angeles County, right? Working for an Italian wine import business, right? Selling wine to, I think I'm going to start my own business, move to Las Vegas, and get into wine and spirits in Las Vegas. And you were how old?
Probably about
mid-20s.
25, 26.
Yeah, 25, 26 years old.
Yeah.
Not a bad gig. That was probably a pretty easy decision for you to make.
It was, there were some things, some key players in Vegas I'd forged relationships with that were directors of major casinos. So, going out and raising some capital to start the business was fairly easy. And, I originally projected that I'd need about $300,000. And I think we only took half of it because I was able to get a couple deals for a Chianti out of Italy that the Frescobaldi family had bottled for me. And we were able to sell, 10 containers to Costco, and that basically started funding the company. And from there, I got into brand development. We created our own brand. So that was a unique opportunity as well. It was like, okay, go create something and private label it. And then from that, we created a whole nationwide distribution.
So what was it like the first time you hopped on a plane and flew to Italy to source your own wine and do your own deal
Yep.
Like walk people through that. I mean, here's a Southern California boy, goes to school in Los Angeles, gets a job out of college, builds some great relationships, leverages that, parlays that into his own business in Nevada, in Las Vegas, to becoming an international global entrepreneur.
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It was, a lot of it was relationships. A lot of it was, having a vision of what we wanted to do. And then it was the development. So yeah, flying to Italy, that first time I remember I had a window seat and we were on Alitalia at the time. And the nice thing was it was a direct flight from LAX to Milan. So we didn't have to stop. But I believe I sat for 9, almost 10 hours in the same seat, and I didn't move the entire time. I tried to sleep, and it was pretty miserable flight. And I believe that time they still allowed smoking on the plane. So in the back of the plane, because it was an international flight.
No.
So it was pretty miserable.
So you land. And then what? I mean,
land.
Did you take Italian in college? I mean,
I did take Italian in college
because we're both Italian, but you're definitely more Italian than me.
Yeah, a little bit. Because there's two types of people in this world: Italians and those who want to be Italian.
I fully agree with you on that one.
But we landed. We had meetings set up. We must have met with a dozen different suppliers from, producers like the Frescobaldi family that did Chianti and Super Tuscans to others that were in the Veneto region that would do Pinot Grigio for us. And it was coming up with what we thought would be the most successful on the retail level here in the U.S. And Pinot Grigio became one of our staple wines that we were able to import and create a unique design bottle that we were able to distribute all over the nation. So, the experiences, meeting, a Marchese, which is like, a royal family in Italy, and, and go to some of the castles and the wineries. It was pretty surreal for someone in their 20s that, at the time, I'd been to Rome when I was a kid with my family, but outside of that, and that was, go to the Colosseum, go to St. Peter's Basilica, but I had never been to Milan. We went down to Palermo, we went to some of the Sicilian vineyards down there too. So, going all over Italy and visiting was kind of surreal. And, one of those things that definitely, if I could do it over again, I would have spent probably more time there, because a lot of times we would fly in, it would be 1 or 2 days, and fly back out. Because when you're hustling, your business is 24/7. We had to get back because, it's not like we had 20, 30, 40 people working for us. We had a girl that was in the office, and it was a couple business partners of mine, and it was like, fly there, get as much done, and fly back. And, there were times, there was one trip that we flew over, we left, landed, had a day of meetings, had a dinner, and flew back the next morning.
That's called hustling, folks. I mean, you guys really were grinding it out.
Sure.
And so you're now this global entrepreneur. Sure. You're importing your own wine. You got your own brand. You're distributing it in how many states across the country?
We were pretty much in every state, Puerto Rico and Canada.
Wow. See, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you picked up a distribution deal with a spirit company too, right? So
we got involved with Gruppo Campari out of Italy, who had just purchased the Sky Spirits portfolio. So 05, 06, 07, that time horizon before the market began to crumble, I was able to broker several deals with pretty much the MGM properties to put Sky Vodka on the well. And I figured, every time somebody would order a vodka soda, I was getting paid about a nickel. So it was a pretty lucrative business, and it was able to control all the distribution for some major brands for the state of Nevada.
Fantastic. So then you're building even more relationships in a kind of similar industry, parallel to the wine business. And so, but there was a time where this all kind of came to an end, right? And so, like in all business, there's struggles, there's challenges, there's successes, there's failures. What to the extent like you want to talk about it, but what happened and what'd you learn from that you can share with people out there who look at your story and go, maybe I can do that someday?
Sure. The struggle is definitely real. And, when you put your heart and soul into something, and you believe in something, sometimes, you know, unfortunately in business, not everybody agrees on everything. And so, got to a point where my vision and drive was different than my partner's, and we came to a crossroad. And fortunately, I made a decent amount of money, and there were some other opportunities. But like when one door closes, another one opens. And that time it was, hey, maybe it's time to hang up my wine and spirits, as much as the passion and the dinners and the events and the travel, but the opportunity, and ultimately the opportunity to come work with you, my cousin, and learn about financial planning and how to invest my own money and really help other people, which really was kind of my passion from way back in college. Being in the fitness industry was all about helping people, helping them feel good about themselves and, lose weight. And so, I've always been in the mindset that, helping others really helps me. And so, having an opportunity to not necessarily change careers completely, because, sales and relationships, no matter what industry you're in, it's definitely about people. And I enjoyed the people part. But so, right around that time that I was doing the spirits deal and brokering the product in Nevada, you had said, hey, I have
this vision, Joe.
You got it.
I got this vision. Why don't you get out of that really fun and awesome and it's super exciting business of traveling around the world and hanging out in casinos and parties and bikinis back then, and all the stuff that you can imagine that happens in that industry, especially in Las Vegas. And once you come into this really stable, conservative business that we do here, mainly retirement and retirement income planning and investments. And so you had a choice to make, right? So you're like, well, on one side, I can rebuild, another career, another business within that industry, or you could try something new, right? And so what did you find that you enjoyed or thought you would enjoy at the time so much with besides obviously be awesome to work with your cousin, be in the family business? No, it's not all, roses and what do they say, rainbows, working in a family business, but working with the family, or, living it up and making a ton of money and running a business out there.
I think it was that internal struggle and conflict. And I've always been a person that likes a challenge. And so, I've always said I could walk out of the vault today with the clothes I have on my back, the relationships I've made over the years, and I could rebuild or develop a whole new line of business just because I like that challenge. Not that I'm leaving tomorrow, but but
is there a pink slip over there?
But that being said, it was a new opportunity. You were building something. You were very successful, working with your father, doing the seminars and everything. And this was an opportunity to open new offices and, build, more relationships with people. And I looked at it as, hey, it's a great opportunity. Yeah, sure. I could have went and, worked for another spirits brand or stayed in the wine business, but it was kind of going back to the root of how do I continue to help people and feel good about what I'm doing. So, thank you for making me an offer I can't refuse, because that's ultimately what it came down to. It was, hey, learn how to invest your own money and, check out what we're doing over here. And, the whole bucket strategy, our core investment philosophy, really resonated with me. And that was important. It was important for me to, one, put kind of the wine and spirits business behind me, have closure there, and have a new opportunity, which even up to this day, you and I are continuing to grow, and our vision to really help 1 million American families. And I think we're going to get there in the next 5 years. I really do, and that's what it's all about.
I get goosebumps when I hear you say that, and you're welcome. But obviously, it's a team effort here. Very blessed to have you come along and help with the company and the vision. We've been through lots of ups and some really big downs, but more ups than downs over the last almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
Coming up, right?
Yep.
Next year. I think we'll have to do the math later, but pretty incredible. So here you are, you're coming in, you've got no licenses. It's a highly regulated industry, but you've been a business owner, entrepreneur, right? You've got some of the, best, relationships on the West Coast, very wealthy individuals and connected individuals. And so first day you're like, well, I got to get licensed. Like, what's that? Right.
Yeah, I think
what was that like?
I think it was, you need to get your insurance license, your Series 7, your Series 66. I was like, Series what? And, the wine and spirits is a regulated industry too, 3-tier system where, an importer has to sell to a wholesaler, so regulation and license, and, that wasn't anything new to me. And, having the business acumen and dealing with attorneys and contracts and, structuring deals, I was like, okay, I can do this. And so, we were looking at, trying to open Newport Beach in LA, and you're like, you need to get your licenses as quick as possible. So, I think I took a week crash course with Kaplan or Dearborn or one of the, financial institutions. And, and I think it was like 60 days, I had all my licenses.
The fastest I've ever seen anybody. And I've had a lot of people in my organization over the years get registered, licensed, the fastest ever. I mean, even to this day, I know with some of your young guys that you've hired over the years, you challenge them to beat your record of like 60 days. It might have been 70, it might have been 58, or somewhere around there. But it was like you were cranking, you were still working, full day and studying, then taking the test, then passing it, then starting the next one. And it was that, I think you used the word tenacious earlier. I mean, you were tenacious. You were like, nothing's going to get in the way of my success.
I was a big believer in working half days, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., half the day. And I think some days I would, go to 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then once we opened the Newport Beach office, I remember driving up there at 6 a.m. and working till 10, 11 p.m. and doing meetings and stuff. So, it was great because I was surrounded by unbelievable people. The mentors I've had here at Lucia Capital Group, our business now, we're phenomenal. I got to sit at the end of a desk and sit in thousands of meetings, just learning about financial planning and really learning about people, how they saved their money, what their career was, what their passions were, how they thought their retirement would look like, and then be able to help them achieve that goal. And so that was kind of the key. And even to this day, it's kind of what I instill in some of the younger advisors that come on board, because it's really not about me or them or you. It's really about our clients and helping them achieve their goals. And so that relationship, and I think that's what's helped me be successful over the years, is you always put the client first and you help them with their strategy, and then the investments kind of take care of themselves. And then you help them with the emotions and the ups and downs and life events. And they want to buy a car or sell a house or pay for a wedding. And, being part of all those life events is really what I love the most.
And I can tell because I tease you all the time, because Joe is a consummate multitasker, and this is probably the longest he's been away, separated from his iPhone, probably all year, because it's actually on the floor right down here. You set it aside, but you are always available, which is amazing. That you can balance out your personal life, your family life, and your work life as if it's one. And if someone calls you and needs you, whether it's a client or your family member or an employee, one of our financial advisors, you're there for them. How do you make that happen?
I think a lot of it is just the tenacity, the mental part of it, that I've told myself a long time ago that if somebody expects something from me, especially when I've made them promises that I would be available, and especially when I'm dealing with somebody's money, there's 24 hours in a day, but there's no reason with technology today that, I have a phenomenal staff. So if something needs to get taken care of, I can get them to follow up with it, but just return a quick phone call to say, hey, you know what? I was out of the office today. Let me take a look at your portfolio tomorrow and get this handled for you. I'm a big believer in that follow-up. And I think that's what's allowed me to be as successful as a financial advisor. It's not necessarily that I'm the smartest financial advisor. I was told I was sneaky smart by one of our advisors, but that's not the point. I know how to utilize our resources. And, I have, 3 CFAs, a dozen CFPs, MBAs that all report up to me. So I know how to access the information, and I know how to get the clients what they need. And so for me to be able to, I think on the surface, and thank you for the compliment, but I don't know if I necessarily always do it, especially with my family sometimes, because, my wife gets on me, why are you on the phone? Put the phone down and enjoy dinner. And it is tough because, I know clients understand, and most of them, kind of respect that, weekend or, after hours family time. But still, there's, like I said, there's life events, there's stuff that happens. I had a client whose husband passed away recently, and, she was just calling to let me know. I didn't even have to call her back, but I just felt, it was 8:00 at night, and I knew she would appreciate me calling back and taking time just to say, hey, I'm here for you. We'll get everything taken care of. Everything's already been set up. We've already done your estate plan. We've handled, we've dotted the I's, crossed the T's. We knew this was going to happen eventually. We just didn't know when. And I know that 5-10 minute conversation meant the world to her, more than any recommendation I'd ever made.
And I can feel it from you as you're explaining that story, how much you care, which is really cool. Not a lot of people in this world are in it for that. You can tell, obviously, you're very successful. You've made a lot of money in your career. But that's like an afterthought for you. It's really the building the relationships, like you mentioned, and the care that you put into it. And yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not at your house when you're having dinner with your family typically, but the point sometimes, but my point about you give the appearance, that, the people that you care about, including your clients and your people and your family member, is that, they're always what's most important to you. And so if it's important to them, it's important to you, and you'll be available to them when they need you, which is really special. So, when, you're managing, so you're like a player coach, right? So, in this role, so you're a player in the sense that you run.
You're not an A at the end.
Yeah, player. You back in the Vegas days, you were a player.
There you go.
But you're a player in the sense that you run a book of business. That's terminology in our industry. Clients and their invested assets with you, roughly of about 400 million or so. And you mentioned your large team, and you have 2 teams really. You've got the team that helps you manage your own personal player, so to speak, book of business, and then the rest of the company with another almost $2
I'll break it
billion.
down for you. So the
help,
way
help
I've
understand
been
your professional world.
sure. So let me break it down. The way I have kind of looked at the business over the years is the only way I can gain the respect of our other advisors is by setting a good example. I tell them activity, activity, activity. But if I'm not doing the activity, well, why should they do the activity? So, when I started in the business, like you said, I was in a cube. I learned the back office. I learned the paperwork. I learned the products. I learned everything. I learned everything about the bucket strategy inside and out. How to match assets to liabilities, how to spend down a portfolio, how to dollar cost average into a growth portfolio. And then from that, I was able to, build up relationships and clients, ultimately to have one of the largest books of business in the company. And then my team oversees, about half the 2.1 billion in assets that we currently have, that we oversee for clients. And I'm able to, in essence, be that player coach because, any advisor that has a question, I usually know the answer because I've had to deal with it with my own clients.
You're in it every day.
Because I'm in it every day. So yes, there's a lot of organizations that say, oh, the guy who's the president or the sales manager of the team, should just focus on the team and we've kind of flipped it around because I have you day to day that can help oversee the business operations. And I think we make a great team, little yin and yang, vision, opportunity, run the company. And I get to be in it every day, which is really what I enjoy. I like that relationship because if, all I did was deal with advisors every single day and not deal with client relationships, I don't think I'd be as passionate about this business. It's those stories like I told you about the lady whose husband passed away. It's being part of helping somebody with their retirement, helping them get to retirement, or even the lunch I had today talking with somebody that's, on the real estate side of life and helping them potentially with their clientele in the future and have a reciprocal relationship. So it's those types of meetings that really drive me. And it's like I said, it comes down to relationships. So as a player coach, I'm able to, one, set an example for our entire firm. I'm also able to mentor some of the younger advisors and say, hey, do what I'm doing. Learn from me. Put the same time in. Somebody calls, call them back. Put the extra effort in. Hey, you know what? This isn't a 9 to 5 punch the clock type job. Yes, markets are open from 6:30, on the Pacific time to 1:30 or 1 p.m. But at the end of the day, money is always at play 24/7. So you have to be available. You have to be responsible and you have to have that passion. If you don't, you really shouldn't be in the business. And unfortunately, I've seen, and we've traveled the entire country and met with probably hundreds of advisors outside of our firm, and they don't have the same passion. They are maybe asset gatherers and they have a model, and once they have the money, they move on to the next, and they don't have that same passion. And so I think that's what's made us unique over the years. What really drives me is it is all about the strategy. It's all about our bucket strategy first, and then we get into what investments are appropriate for the client that fit that strategy and fit their goals.
So you've mentioned bucket strategy a couple times. And so why don't you explain in your own words what the bucket strategy is for the audience and what it means to you?
So, the kind of the core 3-bucket approach, fixed, balanced growth, is our asset allocation tool that basically says how much risk can a client take with their portfolio and mitigate that risk with time and diversification. So we match assets to liabilities and then create a portfolio that uses both time and diversification to help mitigate the risk. So what does that mean? It means that if I had $1 million portfolio today and I needed $50,000 a year or a 5% distribution rate, I need a safe bucket that I could spend down over a fixed number of years so I could allow the riskier buckets time to grow. the balanced bucket being bucket 2, which I would argue is probably one of the most important buckets in the whole.
I think your license plate is actually bucket 2.
My license plate on my car is bucket 2, which, that's the bucket that can provide more income in the future and can also provide the opportunity for growth should the market be volatile and pull back and we want a dollar cost average in the market. So bucket 2, that balanced bucket, is a key. And, a lot of advisors get that wrong. They don't understand how to utilize bucket 2 to provide more income in the future or to provide growth opportunities. And then obviously bucket 3 is the long-term growth bucket, where we have, individual stock portfolios, private credit portfolios, alternative investments, long-term growth, everything under the sun, ETFs, mutual funds that are actively managed, by, what I feel are some very, very smart portfolio managers that we've dealt with, over the last decade and a half, and, really kind of working on, growing people's portfolios and really giving them the peace of mind because they have a strategy and they know where they're spending money out of the portfolio. And you go, well, what if they don't need to spend money out of the portfolio? Well, you still take the same approach, but then you take that income and you can dollar cost average it, or you use it as an opportunistic play for new investments in the future. So you're not, here's the thing, you're not overweight in any one asset class. You're not overweight in any one stock because, we've seen things blow up in the past. We've seen things have tremendous runs, and then we've seen, the tech bubble burst and things come crashing down. So our approach basically helps mitigate some of that risk and puts our clients in a position to have a discussion with me as their advisor on what they ultimately want to do with that money, whether it's take it for income or provide future growth.
So it's interesting. You mentioned if they don't need to take income today. And so we generally promote the bucket strategy concept as a retirement income planning approach, but you use it with your business owner clients and younger investors in a slightly different way.
Correct. Because investing is all about managing emotions. And if all you're going to do is turn on the TV and watch that ticker and the Dow go up and the S&P go down and the NASDAQ goes up and it goes down, you'll drive yourself crazy. By pulling that out, yes, we all know over long periods of time, the market has consistently gone up. Now, how do you provide yourself a long period of time? It's by having enough safety to be able to dollar cost average into those markets when there's big dips. But if, and one of the best stories was a client I met, and it's not a story, it's actual reality, in Vegas. And he came to me, it was November of 2007, had a $4.2 million portfolio. He was 96% in the market. It was all in his 401k and qualified accounts. And he said, Joe, I'm looking to retire January 1. I said, perfect, Steve. I put together a plan for him, mapped it all out. I told him he was taking way too much risk. He needed to, basically diversify his portfolio. He said, well, I only need $100,000 a year from the portfolio. I said, perfect. Not a problem at all. And I mapped out a strategy. Well, Thanksgiving happens, then Christmas happens, and we know the market started getting a little dicey going into, 2008, and, he started panicking because, his portfolio was down a couple 100,000, 300. And I called him in February. I said, Steve, you coming in? And he said, I need to talk to my wife about it a little more. And, I'm like, well, did you at least change the allocation of your portfolio? He's like, no, because I keep losing money. I needed to recover. And so it was one of those conversations that I knew what he needed to do, and he just was kind of stuck. So sure enough, 2008 goes by. November of 2008, he calls me up. He's like, okay, I'm ready to move before the end of the year. And he was down probably about $1.5 million from his 4.2. And I said, no problem, Steve. Come in and your strategy really hasn't changed much. The amounts have changed a little bit, but we could still provide you the $100,000 a year of income from your portfolio, and we'll map it all out for you. He didn't come in. Holidays, and we all know what happened. March 09 hits, and I get a call from him, and he goes, "Joe, I have $1.8 million. I'm all in cash. I couldn't take it anymore." I said, "Steve, good news is your strategy doesn't need to change. We can still provide you the $100,000. Let's allocate it. Let's get the money over." And sure enough, came in. We allocated his portfolio. And then we know what happened after 09 and the next decade. And sure enough, his portfolio, even with him taking money out, we had him bucketized, continued to grow. And to this day, he's a great friend, great client, and, happily retired, enjoying life, and, has, slowly been able to recoup his portfolio, because there's been some tremendous years in the market, but it was having that discipline and strategy. And I wish he would have taken my advice from day one, but you know what? Finally, he got to that point. So, people say, "Oh, the market's overinflated right now. Why don't we wait?" Or the market just took a big dip. Waiting is one of those things that people put in their mind, because we all like to procrastinate, and we all say, "Oh, I'll get to it tomorrow." I tell my wife that, "I'll clean the backyard tomorrow," and you procrastinate. But when you're talking about a strategy, you want to put the strategy in play as quickly as possible, regardless of what the markets are, because the strategy will then dictate how much risk you can take or afford to take. And as you tweak your portfolio, it allows you the ability to really do what you want to do and not worry that there was a 20% decline in the market in 2022 or a 30%, bounce back in the market. You partake in those with your riskier money, but the money you need to spend through buckets you have available in fixed income.
So what I'm picking up is what you love about the bucket strategy is it creates a process, a framework, a business plan, so to speak, for people's investment portfolio that results in you being able to help them navigate the ups and downs of the market, building relationships with them over time. This client, you're using Steve as the name, that you're still good friends with, even through to this day, going back to 2008 timeframe, which is really incredible. So we're going to wrap this up, Joe. And so how would you like to summarize where you're at now in this space of wealth management and helping people, and what people should think about if they were interested in starting their own business, or even just investing alone?
No different than if I had a toothache, I wouldn't do my own root canal. Financial planning and investing, you want somebody that has the experience, that has the team, that has the relationships, that can walk you through the ups and the downs and almost be your financial therapist, and help pull the emotion out of investing and provide you advice. So I would call me up today. I would call one of our advisors up today and say, "Hey, I think I've done a great job, but how do I plan for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? I have some athlete clients that basically are in their 30s and they're probably going to be retired. They're going to live 50 plus more years. And if they don't allocate their portfolio properly, they'll be broke in the next 10. And unfortunately, not having the right advice or education or just access to information, that's what happens to a lot of people. People spend their whole life saving into a 401k, working hard, maxing out, and building up a nice next egg, but they were never taught how to distribute the money out of their portfolio. They were never shown that, yes, the growth asset allocation is fantastic while your dollar cost averaging is saving, but now that you're retired, like Steve, you can't retire with 96% of your portfolio in the market. because 08, 09 will happen again. And if you don't have a strategy and you're not prepared, then you're forced to sell assets when the markets are down versus spend money out of your safe portfolio. So with that, I think the passion and drive that I have for this business is really through the relationships I have with my clients. And I'm constantly wanting to build new relationships with new people and learn from them as well. Because, a lot of times, clients come in and I learned something from them. I learned something about their business, that they were in and how they were successful. And that helps me with the framework with my own life and our business and my family and everything else. So having that balance and having a framework, like you said, is really the key to my success.
Well, couldn't be more proud of you, cousin. This was a fantastic interview. I mean, you are such an awesome individual, caring, loving person, and successful, by the way, from a wine and spirits entrepreneur to running a $2+ billion wealth management firm. Awesome job. And thank you for joining the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.